Okay, hello and welcome to the Collaborating for Competitive Advantage webinar. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sean Smith and I'm going to be your facilitator for today. Before we begin, I would like to thank our sponsors, the Queensland Government Department of Science, Information Technology, Innovation and the Arts, without whom we wouldn't be able to bring this webinar to you today. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to our two presenters, Denise Raybould and Samantha Perkins.
Hello everyone, I'm Denise Raybould from the Australian Institute for Commercialisation. So today's topic, collaborating for competitive advantage, is an interesting and current topic. So what we're going to cover today is why collaborate, why would you bother doing this anyway, what type of collaboration is best for your business and how to collaborate. It's an introduction to all of these topics because we could talk about this for days, but this webinar will give you an overview. So why collaborate? Well, it comes back to competitive advantage and innovation. The world, the quote from Rupert Murdoch is pertinent. The world is changing very fast, so big won't beat small anymore. It's the fast beating the slow. So if you're doing business the way you were even just a couple of years ago, at best you're standing still. At worst you're going backwards. So the world is moving on, your markets are changing, your customers are expectations are changing. So what are you doing to keep up with this and progress and gain competitive advantage? There's old thinking and new thinking around open innovation. So in the old world, we used to think that all the smart people in our field worked for us. Now we know that all the smart people don't work for us, and we need to access people inside and outside the company. An example of this, a really good example, is Procter & Gamble. So P&G employ hundreds of scientists, and even they have realised that they were getting diminishing returns on their R&D investment. So they have they went to an open innovation model. They realised that for every scientist that they had in-house, there were about 200 other scientists outside in the world who are also doing fantastic work. So they've changed their model. They now scour the world for innovations that they bring in-house to develop new products and solutions. And in the first couple of years, they have turned around their R&D productivity increases, gaining an uplift of about 40%. So even the largest companies, as well as SMEs, realise that there's so many options now out there, there's so much information and technology, and the world is changing so quickly that they can't have all the resources inside, and they don't need to. So in the old thinking, we used to think we had to do all the R&D ourselves and discover it and develop it in-house. Now we know we don't need to do that. And companies used to think that getting to market first was the winning strategy, and in some cases it still is, but a longer-term strategy and a more robust strategy is actually building a better business model that will be more sustainable. In terms of IP, we used to think that we should control our IP so our competitors cannot profit from it. These days we look more about profiting from the use of IP, whether it's internal or external. So we can leverage IP, we don't need to own it all the time, as long as we're able to exploit it or utilise it for competitive advantage. And we used to think that innovation was really product innovation. Now we know that there's many types of innovation, and this gives you a bit of a summary of 10 types of innovation. So you can see that there's innovation around how we create and deliver value and the revenue models that we realise from that. And that's our financial innovation around our business model. There's process, how we process our products and services can be innovative. The actual offering the solution can be innovated, and the way we deliver that can be innovated. But not all types of innovation give us the same return. And this graph shows that it's really in that finance, that business model innovation, where you get an absolute advantage uplift, because it's it's much more difficult to replicate, and because you're creating additional value rather than just a new offering. So tying in additional value, allowing you to then charge more for that. And one of the best ways to innovate your business model is actually to collaborate. And we can see this again in an IBM study. So businesses that have innovated their business model have a much greater return on their innovation investment than other businesses that are just relying on product service innovations or operational innovations. And here's some ABS data from Australia showing that businesses that innovate and collaborate are far more productive in terms of their productivity performance than organisations that don't innovate or collaborate or only do one of these. So here's another set of data. And these figures vary. I've seen various forms of that. But all the figures indicate that there's a productivity and profitability uplift. So these are from Frost and Sullivan. They're saying impact of innovation, about 29% increase in profitability, significant increase in customer satisfaction. You can expect a productivity increase and quality, and of course innovation increase. So the business case for collaborating as a form of innovation is sound. There's really good reasons to do it. But let's have a look at how we do it. In fact, Australian companies are lousy at it. This is some data from the comparing OECD countries. If you look right to the far right-hand side, you'll see Australia there, just ahead of Brazil and Mexico and Chile, but behind Turkey and New Zealand. So Australian firms don't do this naturally. We don't collaborate, and therein lies the opportunity for us. So if we could become better at this, that will give us an additional way to innovate our business model for competitive advantage. So what is this collaboration thing? Well, is it networking? Well, it's more than that. It's networking is, and I'm sure we're all in lots of networks where we exchange information. Is it coordination? No, coordination is synchronization and integration of activities. So it's more than that. It's more than cooperation where we're sharing things for mutual benefit instead of competing. Collaboration is actually working together, building on each other's work, and getting an advantage that you couldn't have got by yourself. So in terms of the elements of collaboration, what makes it a collaboration? Well, it's that strategically working together to increase each other's capabilities. Okay, so and this is one of the reasons why working with diverse organisations actually results in a significant uplift, because people are bringing different capabilities and skills and insights and networks to the collaboration that you don't have in your own company. So it's definitely strategic, and it's about increasing each partner's capabilities. It's collaboration is about a common goal. So it's the goal of the team in terms, all businesses have their own goals, but in terms of the collaboration, the common goal of the collaborative venture is more important in that instance than the individual goals of its members. It's about sharing risks, rewards and responsibilities, and in terms of projects this is really important. So everyone buys in and there's a sharing of both the upside and downside, and it's about delivering real business outcomes and real business benefits. The advantage, and it results in an advantage uplift, that is gaining something, some sort of competitive advantage that is greater than any individual member could have achieved by themselves. So why do we collaborate? Well, there's a lot of factors driving businesses to collaborate. Products are becoming increasingly complex in terms of the number of technologies they're including. It's no longer possible for firms to master all the skills that you need under one roof in terms of technological changes. there are market factors driving this, including the supply of cheap labour in companies in different countries of the world. There's legal and regulatory factors that you may not have the ability in-house to meet all of those, so you partner with someone who can. And there's scalability. So being able to increase capacity relatively easily. So people collaborate, businesses collaborate in essence to create new value, to increase the pie or make a new pie, and reduce risks and costs associated with maintaining competitive advantage. And the benefits that we see are accessing new opportunities, and they may be market or supplier, other relationships, accessing additional capabilities, whether they're technical capabilities or process, that rapid access to capacity or some specific domain knowledge, to reduce cost, whether that's labour or materials, suppliers or infrastructure, and to reduce risk, whether that's financial risk, market or project, so that you don't need to bring everything in-house to deliver the benefit. So why would, and that's the reasons why businesses would collaborate, but why would a business want to collaborate with a university? So the reasons for that are, for example, to solve a technical problem. So there's that you may have an issue that you don't have the skills in-house to solve. Talking to some people yesterday, we came across an example of this. People were growing calypso mangoes, and they were getting about a 60% ripening. With some input from a university, they were able to increase that to a 90%. So the business certainly didn't have that sort of capability in-house, but it accessed it through a university. Businesses also collaborate with the university to stay ahead of new developments in the area. So they're universities and research organisations that are constantly developing new intellectual property. They are not in the position usually to commercialise that. They need a partner, and there's opportunities for businesses there. Businesses also collaborate with universities to tap into a larger base of new ideas and technologies and build up expertise in-house through the transfer of skills from the researcher to employees. So that's why organisations might collaborate either with each other or with a research organisation. And what are the types of collaborations? Okay, well, there may be collaborations business to business across industry sectors. So there's more than one type of collaboration. An example of this is the Geelong Food Co-Products Cluster. And here we have a group of like-minded businesses working together for mutual benefit. The businesses in the group include producers, so there's poultry producers, seafood producers, rabbit producers. There's also businesses like recyclers and companies like Incitec Pivot. So each business has its own traditional range of products, and they work together within and across the value chains to develop co-products. So what they're focusing on is adding value to low value or surplus products. An example of this is a new fish and sauce chilled meat packs for retail. So this is an example of businesses that are not necessarily in the same value chain, but there's a common goal amongst these to work together and find new product offerings that for mutual benefit. The next type could be next type of collaborations, businesses to businesses within a supply chain. And look, we're seeing more and more of these. Where we are seeing a change in businesses thinking, Australian businesses, okay, are not good at collaborating, and often there's a fear that I can't collaborate with my competitors because, well, I'll just reduce my market share. The opportunity is to actually increase your capability and capacity and grow your market share, and in fact increase the size of the pie that you're going for. We see this we've been seeing this in the resource sector at the moment. What we've found is that a lot of SMEs are missing out on being able to supply into the resource supply chains, value chains of the major resource projects because they lack the capacity. And it's too risky for the EPCMs to engage them. And they don't want to engage multiple times with small businesses. So what we have seen is a willingness to collaborate. And an example of that is Australian Steel Fabricators. It's a joint venture in northern Queensland, and it's a group of 5 steel fabricators with complementary and sometimes overlapping capability. But with their skills and with their equipment, they are now, none of them individually were able to win contracts into the major resource projects, but with a combined capability centred around a joint venture, they are now competing to supply into those major resource projects. So that's increased the pie for them, definitely. The other way we've always seen collaboration in the agricultural industry. We've seen research and development corporations for a number of years and cooperatives. We're seeing also now more businesses working together and collaborating around regional and experience in food and agriculture. So that provenance issue is a market trend that businesses in this sector are tapping into. And Relish Capricorn, an initiative in the Capricorn region, Rockhampton, Yeppoon and surrounds, is one example of this, but there are similar examples right up and down the Queensland coast and, of course, the Barossa as well, so right throughout Australia. Another example of collaboration is business to business with competitors. So an example of this is Fabco. It's a joint venture between 2 farm marketing companies in southern Queensland. And Fabco specialises in growing and marketing a variety of fruit and vegetables. And they work with various research and development organisations to develop new varieties. And Fabco is an example of, again, increasing the pie through collaboration. So they have been able to secure a strong customer base, and that puts them in a distinct competitive advantage in supplying into its major customers. So supported by that is a network of growers, not only in Queensland or southeast Queensland, but right throughout Australia, so that they're able to ensure uninterrupted supply of key product offerings throughout the year, and that gives them a distinct competitive advantage. Now this is a very successful collaboration between competitors, and it's now intergenerational. So there's obviously value in that. An example of a business to research organisation collaboration is MBD Energy. MBD is a company that has been a startup that's been started up to commercialise this technology, algae. And it's the source of the technology and the expertise is James Cook University. So the holy grail for MBD is biofuels, algae-based biofuels. But along the way, because that's a long-term goal, requires a lot of technical effort as well as market and commercialisation effort, they have managed to apply algae to different applications, including cleaning up heavy metal, cleaning up water as feed for cattle, and there's a food product as well. So this is an example where MBD could not possibly have done this themselves. They have benefited from the relationship. It's been a particularly good one with James Cook University. James Cook has world-class researchers in this field, and Australian universities have world-class researchers. And having that expertise has attracted investors and opportunities that MBD could not have attracted itself. And these are particularly international opportunities for MBD. So MBD has been able to access the technology, but also has benefited from the relationships that a world-class research organisation can bring. Okay, so that covers why you would want to collaborate and the different types of collaborations, I'm now going to ask Sam to talk about how you go about becoming ready to collaborate.
So now you've decided you want to become ready to collaborate. What are the key questions you need to address, and what are the challenges in collaboration, and how can you overcome them? So the most important thing in any collaboration is to be clear about what the goals of that collaboration are. Are you seeking to extend your current resources and capabilities to meet new customer demands or new market opportunities? Are you looking to increase the value of your product? And the example we're showing the plums going into the nutraceuticals and the various stages at which value is added to that original product. Are you seeking to decrease the cost of you getting a new product to market, or to share the risk of developing new products and services? Do you need to access another company's technology or people or capital in order to gain an advantage in the market? Or are you seeking to transfer additional skills and knowledge from another company into your business to help build up your capability? So you need to be clear about the goals, both the goals for yourself and the goals for your potential collaboration partner. So how do you find the right partner? You firstly need to think about what are you bringing to the collaboration. So you've thought about your goals and what you need to achieve. Now you need to think about what you're bringing, and therefore think about what is missing from that collaboration and go about finding the right person. So we suggest that you try your networks, suppliers, trade associations. You need to do some market research to help you find the right type of company. But you need to stop and sit and think about what type of company, what are they bringing? Are they bringing finance? Are they bringing technology? Are they bringing people skills? And how is that going to help you advance the collaboration and what's in it for both groups? You also need to think about your own company and how you're going to make that partnership work. Who's going to be involved in doing what at each stage of your company? Do you have the human resources, the time and effort required to work on and manage this collaboration? And how will you actually do it? Once you've found your potential partner and you've evaluated, you need to look at building the relationship. Now the first thing you need to think about is you need to sit down and talk with the other company. Are your cultures compatible? Are the governance and organisational processes in both companies compatible? The decision making, the policies, the financial resources. There's bound to be differences and incompatibilities. Can those incompatibilities be overcome, and how can they be managed to overcome that? And you also need to look at the strengths and the weaknesses of each business and bring into this collaboration and complement each other. In the end, building a collaboration is about people. You really need to put in place good communication, good idea of who's doing what tasks, a shared goal, a shared purpose, a clear plan for achieving those goals for both collaboration partners, mutual respect, good leadership of the project, must be clear who's doing what, when, how they're communicating and reporting it, and effective leadership of that process. So it is a time-consuming activity to collaborate with another organisation, and you have to work on building that relationship to meet the goals for both organisations. Now when we talk about collaboration, we're talking about a continuum. We've just talked about a joint venture being a very formal and complex type of collaboration, and if you have a look at the graph, you can see that that falls on the far right, the top right of the screen. The axis along the bottom describes how formal the relationship is, the collaboration, and the axis on the left, the vertical axis, describes how complex that collaboration is. Now, if you're sharing information with a collaborating partner and that's all you're doing, it may be as simple as a handshake. But as you're putting more at stake, and there's more at stake for both partners about sharing key information, key personnel, the expertise built up in that company and the collaboration becomes more complex, you need to increase the formality, and that's to protect both partners. So you might step through to a confidentiality agreement. If you're actually sharing resources to develop something new, then you might step through to a memorandum of understanding. And if the situation requires full commitment from both parties and has particular obligations, and in resources there's a lot around having the insurance and liability protection, you might have to go as formal as a joint venture. But your collaboration activity will fall somewhere along that continuum, and this graph just illustrates that. Now, I mentioned before, and I'll repeat again, key parts of developing a collaboration are getting on with your partners, having good communication, and developing the agreement. And I will stress this because the paperwork is important. It's very important to agree up front what's going to occur, because inevitably, as a project goes along, things will change, and it's much easier to deal with those changes when a lot of things have been worked out and discussed in advance. So we've picked up some of the major success factors here: milestones, costs, tasks, ownership of IP, sharing benefits, and exiting the collaboration when it's achieved its goals. And I'm going to step you through each part of that process. Starting with milestones, it's very important to agree and record what the milestones are and how they're going to be met. You've got to think about who's doing what and what is the agreement of we have successfully done that. It's surprising how many collaborations commence where people haven't actually agreed what the outcomes are for each party. They've just assumed it's the same. But that's not a good idea. It's much better to discuss the milestones. Now, as part of that, you have to agree how costs are going to be shared, and those need to be linked to milestones. And I shall move on to the next stage. So costs. Who is going to bear what costs of development, and how will those costs be carved up? So those costs include cash. They include the in-kind contribution, that might be staff kind, facilities, the equipment that a particular collaboration partner holds. It might be dealing with applying for and obtaining external sources of support, such as government grants or the R&D tax incentive. Might include how any background intellectual property is valued and dealt with that you bring in, and any other significant contributions that one or more partner is bringing to the collaboration. It's worth taking the time to sit down and work this out at the beginning. The next most important thing is the tasks. The more planning you do up front, the more smoothly the project will run and the better the outcome will be. So give good thought to getting the right people involved. You need to be the project manager. You need to drive the collaboration. So don't just assume that it will happen. You need to make sure that your technical experts are working with the other party's technical experts, and that the experienced people in your finance department are working with their finance department, and so on. So you need to be clear about the tasks, and that includes from the tasks of who reports to the board, who sets the strategy, how you deal with changes, and the actual day-to-day reporting responsibilities. Now you need to think about intellectual property. Now by intellectual property I do mean things like patents, trademarks and so on, but also improvements to processes that may come about as a collaboration. You might learn something new. If you are providing a machine, you might learn how to customize and adjust that machine for particular situations. The other collaborating partner might learn how their processes can be adjusted to meet the particular, to improve it using this particular machine. You need to be clear about what intellectual property is being brought to the project and how new intellectual property will be dealt with. And I don't just mean ownership. Many people think it's just ownership, but actually owning the IP coming out of a project is one thing, but it's not the same as who has the beneficial use of it. So a key question is, do you actually need to own the IP or do you just need to use it? If you need to use it, you need to agree who has the rights to use it and how that intellectual property will be protected. You also need to consider who is going to pay for protecting that intellectual property. At the end of the day, the purpose of the collaboration is to come up with something new and innovative to gain a market advantage for both companies. So intellectual property is a key part of that and needs to be discussed. Now, coming from costs and who's bringing what and who does what, consider the benefits. How are you going to agree to share the benefits? So you need to sit down and discuss and agree and record with the collaboration parties how those benefits will be divvied up if the project is successful. And by benefits, I'm talking about the commercial benefits, because different parties may have different needs going into the project and seek different outcomes at the end. So it's important to clear these things up front. And of course, when you come to the end of the project, you need to be clear how you're going to close down the collaboration, if it served its purpose, or if it's going to turn into something else, how that will work. So when you start your collaboration and you start to open the negotiations and talk with your collaboration partner, you need to plan with the end in mind so that you can actually see the success. Or if it's not success, you can see how to change it. And you can know that if one partner wants to work away at a particular stage, how that will be dealt with in the collaboration. It's a good idea to discuss all these things and think about them up front and have them agreed in writing before you start the process. So just to recap, the key things to think about in any collaboration and to plan for is to think about the people you need to be involved, having the right people, having people who can work together in the business and to achieve the objective you're going for, to think about the process of collaboration, so the allocation of tasks and costs, the administration of it, how you're going to deal with background IP, and all of those sorts of administrative things. And also to think about the platform. It's highly likely that your collaboration partner is not in a business just down the road. So at some point, and as part of those processes, you need to think about how you're going to collaborate. Now in this day and age, that usually refers to IT. How are you going to collect, how are you going to manage your communication? Are you going to have a central repository for emails? Are you going to have regular teleconferences? Are you going to use some software that allows you to brainstorm with somebody in another room and capture all those ideas if you're solving problems and so on? All of these things should be thought about and planned and agreed up front between the parties. Now, just to wrap up and to reinforce, collaboration is about working with people to achieve goals. So it's people tend to remember the tasks and forget the people side of it. And so we'll just reinforce, for collaboration to be successful, you need to have ongoing communication between the parties. They have to be willing to work together. You need to think about ideas and teamwork, but overall there has to be a common purpose and trust that both parties will do their side of the bargain. And you have to have a plan for achieving that goal. It's best if you have a mix of skills and experience brought to the table. You have to have mutual respect between the parties. You do need to get it down in writing. It will save a lot of problems later if you sit down and discuss things and get them in writing up front. And most of all, it requires effective leadership. So thank you very much for listening to our webinar at this stage, and we're going to open it up for questions. Denise and I will be available for questions for the next 15 minutes or so. So please submit them. And I'll hand back to Sean, who'll be facilitating that part of the process.
Okay, thank you very much to Sam and Denise for sharing the insights. I can say that I've certainly learnt something today. And as Samantha said, if you do have any questions, now's your chance. Just type those into the question box there on your console, and they'll come through to us, and they'll get answered. I might just start things off with a question of my own, which is how do we mitigate risk in collaboration? And that could go to either of you. And further to that, how do I know that I am working with the right person, or that I've chosen the right person?
Okay, good question, Sean. And I guess there are different types of risks that can be present in a collaboration. There's risks around whether you've chosen the right partner, whether the collaboration was actually necessary, or whether you could have handled meeting your needs in a different way or a lower key way. In terms of mitigating the risk, really it's kind of following what we've said are the steps of collaboration. Really important is to find the right partner. So you need someone that not only has the complementary or technical skills or whatever capabilities that you need, but it's a cultural fit. And Sam had a list of, that last slide showed a list of kind of things to think about. And it's really often the soft stuff that will undo a potentially great collaboration if you don't pay attention to it. So not only the due diligence around the reputation and the history and the financial status and the technical capabilities of your partner, but can you work together? Are you really working towards a common goal? Are you both in it? Can you trust each other? All of those things are really, really important. So do your due diligence. The more, and then that flows on to setting up the collaborative agreement and the expectations in there. Basically, the more time and effort you put into establishing the relationship and the agreement about what is going to be delivered by both parties, how you're going to share those benefits, how you're going to handle issues as they arise, the more successful the collaboration will be. And this is where you need to build up a little bit of capability in-house around the people, processes and platforms there as well to assist you.
So I've just got another question here. I can imagine that when you have a lot of collaborators, things can get a little bit complicated. So I'm just wondering if you've got any tips on how to keep things simple, how to simplify complex collaborations.
Well, I guess in terms of when we see the multiple partner situation, and you're right, Sean, in that if it's a one-to-one, that's quite straightforward. When you get to the more complex and typically the more formal collaboration, so whether they're in terms of some sort of collaborative marketing effort, as we might see in the regional food collaborations, or the joint venture arrangements, that's when you see, particularly you see formal boards and formal committees and formal structures and formal defined leadership roles. And that helps to organise it because it assigns people to those roles and people can focus on managing the complex relationships. You still need all of those things we've been talking about. The right people to be in that. Just because there's 6 and not 2 doesn't mean that you cannot afford to have all 6 people on board and working towards that common goal. So that's still really important. The agreement's still really important. But for the more complex ones, you probably need to invest in more management infrastructure in terms of managing that more complex relationship.
Okay, I've got another question here, and this can go to either Denise or Sam. This is from Amanda, and Amanda's got a question around legal documents, legal agreements. So this is about a collaboration with a new venture that's separate to her current business. She wants to bring someone into the new venture, give them a stake in the business to bring in the skills that they can. And Amanda's just wondering, what is the type of legal document you need to have in place in this situation?
Well, it sounds like you'd have several. Because you'd have a shareholders agreement if they take some equity in the company. You would have to have an employment agreement if they're working for you. Most of all, if you are bringing somebody in, you would want to make sure you had a confidentiality agreement. And that's normally written as part of employment and so on. It comes back to that graph I showed earlier about how as the collaboration becomes increasingly complex, it also needs to become increasingly formal in order to protect both parties. So if you are bringing somebody into your business, so it's just you, and the other party, it's fairly simple, and your solicitor would be able to draw up those agreements for you. If you're collaborating with several companies and forming something new like a joint venture, then that's a lot of legal work and you require a lot of documentation, and there are people who practice in that area. You really need to take a step back and think about that graph and think about how complex the situation is and whether you need to step up to a confidentiality agreement or up further to a memorandum of understanding or something as complex as a joint venture agreement. And it's a case of selecting the agreement that is appropriate for what you were trying to achieve. So it comes back to your strategy and your goals for the collaboration and therefore what you need, and you can then instruct your solicitor or somebody else like that to help you with that agreement.
Okay, thanks very much, Sam. And you referred there to one of the graphs in your slides. I'd just like to make the point that we will be sending around slides tomorrow following up from this webinar, so you will have the chance to look at some of those figures again. I've got a follow-up question here from Amanda. It's a great one. Amanda is asking, what type of legal person do you approach to make sure that, and how do you make sure that they have the skills and knowledge to advise you properly to come up with the relevant agreements that you spoke about, Sam?
Well, you approach a solicitor for a shareholders agreement or something like that. A solicitor or accountant, the usual. If you're looking at a licensing situation, the AIC can do those sorts of documents. If you're looking at a joint venture, well, we've worked with companies to do that sort of thing. You need to think about what type of document you need and approach those particular skills. So there is no one single person. It's driven by you and your needs. When in doubt, the AIC has a very good website about commercialisation and the processes, and it's worth having a look at our website to understand what it's like to step through and the different types of situations and different types of agreements that might be required. If not, Google is your friend.
Thanks very much, Sam. And I've got another question here from Michael, and this one relates to government grants and incentives. Michael's asking what grants are available from the government to incentivise collaboration.
Well, Michael's actually asking, is the AC going to coordinate a new budget possible grants for e.g. creative collaboration between the federal government and the unfinancial inventor? And so, Michael, at this stage, we're not sure. We're not sure how any of the new grants that have been announced, or the new funding pot that's been announced in the budget, is going to be administered, and people working in those departments are still finding that out as well. So that's uncharted territory at this stage. But anything that we do will certainly be put through on our websites. So sorry I don't have a definitive answer for you there. Are there any other questions, anything else that people would like to know in terms of collaboration?
I've got one other question here. Do you have any tips on approaching companies for collaborations, or any suggestions on how to do that?
Well, I guess it's like what you're doing is you're effectively pitching to a potential partner when you approach someone. And so after you've identified the sort of skills or abilities or distribution channels, or whatever it is that you're looking for, and you've done your market research to say, now who are the possible providers of that, and kind of filtered down your short list. In terms of how you approach them, you're actually wanting to get them to buy into your vision, to excite them, so that they're going to commit to working with you. Okay, so and really, if it's a true collaboration you're looking for, you are looking for commitment from them, and a mutual benefit. So you need to explain your vision and excite them in terms of what we call a pitch, and to explain the vision and the mutual benefits and how this might work. Now, next week's webinar on pitching may actually be a little bit useful quite useful if you're working through that process. But it's like any stakeholder you're trying to engage with you to help you in your venture, whether it's an investor from government or private or a potential distribution partner or supplier. So you're wanting something from them, you're wanting them to change from their current processes. What's going to excite them about that? What's going to be in it for them? And you need your elevator pitch and a more formal pitch.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Denise. And as Denise mentioned, we do have another webinar next week. We're continuing the series, and the topic next week will be pitching your idea. So some very useful information there potentially if you're looking to pitch a collaboration to another business. I don't see any further questions here, so I'll give everyone one last chance to type in their questions. But thank you all very much for attending. We hope you got something out of it, and we hope to see you again in our future webinars. So with that, I'm going to bring the event to a close. Thanks again.